Is the middle class dead is the question that we want to ask ourselves. First, I do want to thank y'all. Thank y'all for rocking out with me. If you haven't already, make sure you hit a like for the algorithm or dislike. It doesn't matter. It all works the same way. And then last but not least, make sure y'all tap into Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order plus a free gift. If you're looking to rock out with a group of people that's going in the direction that you want to go, make sure you tap into the Patreon. The link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. The question that I have for you guys is, in this last 10 minutes, is the middle class dead? Well, we want to find out because the people are basically saying that there is no more middle class. I've been saying that for years, but we'll get there.
I just watched a lady walk out of the grocery store with a buggy slap full of groceries. And I'm having to fight the urge to run over and say, what do you do for a living? Do you have an OnlyFans page? Are you a drug dealer? You can tell me. Because I just walked out with 4 bags and thought that I might have to sell a kidney on the black market. These grocery prices are high as giraffe coot out here, and you got a buggy full. You can tell me. I won't tell anybody.
Hey, remember back in the day, I remember when 9/11 happened, right? I remember when 9/11 happened. And gas stations were gouging. In addition to the gas stations gouging, on top of that, you also had energy prices going through the roof. And so the flex was, if you can get a full tank of gas or you can fill up somebody else's tank, if you can drive all day and still cruise and not have to stay at home and play video games, that was a flex.
Not what it used to be, and it's now pretty much meshing with high class. There was a recent study done this year where they said that middle class income is now between $150,000 and $250,000. So anybody that makes under $150,000 a year is considered low class.
Do y'all agree with that? And I don't want you to say whether you agree with it just based off of your emotions. Do you agree with it because you don't think that middle class, what is middle class now? I'm trying to understand, what is middle class? Because I know that a lot of people don't want to say, oh man, they consider me poor. And then there's going to be other people that say, well, the census says that the average household income is between $67,000 and $72,000 a year. So technically, I'm middle class. What is middle class, y'all? Is middle class a minimum of $150,000 a year? Whoa! That's a lot.
You want to read into this yourself, this is the website, and this is the data that I was just talking about. My friend makes $150,000 a year, and she still has to live in a studio apartment. And it's not even a cost of living thing, but it's like studio apartment rent, her student loans, car payment, which is not even that high. I went over her finances with her to see what she could cut out, but you can't do much about your student loans. We've already reconsolidated those. And she thought by the time she'd be making 6 figures, life would look different. So the only way that you can make more money without working overtime is investing your money and climbing up the ladder that way. I know a lot of people don't have a lot of money to invest because there's nothing left over, right? So even if you have to start with $100 a month, that's going to add up for you and do the work that would have to be done otherwise for you to work a part-time job, get another job, multiple jobs, the whole thing. I personally...
This is what I call being on a treadmill. And a lot of people are going to complain and say, man, I just want to live off the grid and all this stuff. No, a lot of us have self-inflicted wounds. And then a lot of us also on top of that, a lot of us also make sure that we put ourselves at a disadvantage. Why? Because we adjust our lifestyle or we make bad decisions earlier in our lives. That's also going to factor into whether or not we can afford to get off the treadmill. Whether or not you can afford to get off the treadmill. When I was on Dr. Phil, there were people on there that had higher expenses, higher personal expenses. I'm not talking about business expenses, but they had higher personal expenses than me. So they were struggling, broke, operating at a deficit as far as how much money did they make versus how much money did they spend. It was one couple on there. It was a couple, 2 people, and they had a little kid. And they said that inflation was killing them. And again, I think that inflation plays a role. They said that inflation was killing them and their expenses was $8,000. Y'all gonna see it. As soon as they tell me when that episode is on air, Y'all gonna be like, yeah, you should have held them accountable, Anton. Their expenses, their personal expenses, not business expenses, personal expenses is $8,000 a month, which is the equivalent of $96,000 a year. Their personal expenses were higher than my personal expenses. And they were sitting there running in the Victim Olympics. White man, white woman, and they said that they had a little kid too. And they was out here talking about we struggling. Some of y'all got self-inflicted wounds. I started going through their budget. I said, oh, student loans. Oh, you thought that you needed a big house. No, you didn't. I mean, after I pay my mortgage and my student loans. So, lady, come on snap out of it. And you simping over there for, keep following behind your wife instead of getting her in order.
Take like $200 to $300 every month and invest it into my secure compound interest account with MPI. And I have that locked in so that like I don't have to freak out when it comes to retirement, because literally nobody can afford to retire right now. And I'm trying to get ahead of the curve. So that's my recommendation if you're also looking for a way to get out of the system. I have a lot of videos where I talk about
middle and rich class. The middle class is the worst place to be. And here's why. When you're on the lower income side, there's a decent amount of support that you can get from the government, like food stamps, child care assistance, housing assistance, utility assistance, and so much more.
I feel her, and I feel her message, and I'm going to let her get her message out. But let me also say this. I never, ever wanted to be on government assistance just because it was free. I never wanted your free food. I never wanted your stimulus checks. You know, when they sent out those stimulus checks during the pandemic, when they sent out those stimulus checks, I was thankful that I didn't qualify. I was thankful that I never took out a PPP loan. I don't want your free anything. I want you to stop spending my tax dollars to give it out to people that then is going to use that to go and continue to do things that's not best for them. I never wanted to be in the position to receive public assistance. For me, that was a something that I could hang my hat on that I didn't participate. Never got your stimulus check. Never even cared for it. Didn't affect me either way, because guess what? Most of the people that I personally knew that got those stimulus checks, after they spent it and they spent it on nonsense, it was in the same position that they was. I seen somebody go right out and buy a TV with it. Got a little stimulus check, a little stimmy check, and went and bought a TV with it. And I was just looking like, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. You're literally an idiot. Shoot, we ain't got to pay no student loans. I'll be waiting over here for you. Hey, tell homegirl that Nate will be waiting over there. Nate is going to be waiting over there for her, and I'm going to be sitting here holding you accountable when you get done.
On the flip side, when you're wealthy, you don't need that support from the government. You can afford the best health care, enroll your kids in top-notch child cares and school, and live stress-free when it comes to paying bills. But if you're in the middle class, you're kind of on the struggle bus because you make too much for things like food stamps, child care, utility assistance. Yet you don't make enough to be able to afford these things comfortably. It's often a constant juggling act, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it's tough to catch a break. Plus, don't get me started on the amount of taxes that the middle class pays in comparison to the rich and the poor.
That is a myth. Rich people pay the majority of the country's taxes. It's not the middle class. Y'all pay a higher tax rate, but we pay the majority of the taxes. It's a difference.
Totally agree with this perspective. And if you're in the middle class, I am rooting for you to reach that rich status, because the middle class grind is no joke. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments if you agree.
Being hollowed out. Do you know why the American middle class is at the worst it's ever been? It's not illegal immigrants or the most recent moral panic that conservative media is pushing out right now. It's also not because millennials and Gen Z are lazy or spending too much on avocado toast.
A lot of it is based off of that, but I'm going to go ahead and dispel this myth as soon as he say it.
Single graph should tell you everything you need to know about why the middle class is being gutted and failing. The short answer is unregulated corporate greed. The average CEO pay has gone up 1,000% since the 80s. And look at the typical worker pay. You can barely even see that line.
First of all, CEO pay is closely tied with equity in the company. There's plenty of tech workers that got incredible packages, and they were not CEOs, they were not CIOs, they were not CTOs. They got, or CFOs. We could throw any letter in between the C and the O, and they were not none of that. And it's because a lot of their packages that they got was tied to the performance of the company, right? So, for example, if you was a part of a startup or you even worked for a company that was already established, that was publicly traded, and you negotiated your package to have equity instead of taking a base salary or to have a large salary, the large salary is where you're going to get taxed because that's the money that comes out based off of your W-2. But if you took equity into the company, a lot of these people instantly became millionaires. When Snapchat went public, when some of these companies went public, they automatically became millionaires because they were invested and they took the early sacrifice in order to have the equity in the company. And if you look at CEO pay, what they started doing since the early 70s and the 60s and the 50s, what they started doing is tying CEO pay to the performance of the company. Well, why did they do that? They did that because they wanted the shareholders to benefit. So you, as a shareholder, benefit when you have a productive CEO like a Tim Cook, like a Steve Jobs, like Bill Gates, or any of the great CEOs, right? You benefit. Elon Musk and Tesla made so many millionaires. Why? Because there were early investors that was a part of it, and he did the thing that was in the best interest of the company. And so not only did the shareholders get rewarded, we wanted to incentivize you to do the best thing for the company even after you left. So we wanted it to be a great company even afterwards. And so your pay went into the equity of the company. So they gave you stock options. So when we just use CEO pay as a baseline and say, well, CEO pay went up 1,000%, it's a white lie. Their performance, the company's performances went up greatly and their pay was tied to the performance of the company. I'll give you an example. Amazon CEO got paid zero. I think he only got his base salary 1 year. Hold on, let me see that. You know, I like to pull up the stats. I think it was 2022. What was his salary? CEO pay of Amazon CEO, according to CBS News, plunged the year before during the pandemic when they absolutely killed it. Here, I'm going to pull it up on the screen for y'all just so y'all can see it for yourselves so y'all don't think that Anton is out here just saying stuff. I actually like to substantiate my argument with real facts. All right? So according to CBS News, the year before Andrew Jassy, which he was made CEO once Steve Jobs retired back in 2020, I believe, or 2019. But his pay based off of the performance of the company in 2021 was 212. I don't know if it was 2021 or before, but it was 212 million because it was all based off of the equity that he had in the company. And he was also an early investor. And he came from Amazon Web Services, which performed well. The following year, it plunged from that to $1.3 million. So he didn't have the same compensation. Why? Because the performance of the company didn't do as well in the following year, and the shareholders had to suffer as a result of it until the recovery of the stock. And that's why he only made 1.3 million versus making 212 million the previous year, because it was tied to the performance and the equity that he got in the company. So when you say CEO pay, right? When you say CEO pay, it's based off of their investment in it. If the company doesn't do well, then you can kiss that bonus or that equity and that performance goodbye. But if the company does well and the shareholders do well, then the company does well also. What we don't realize is that when we just want to get paid as employees, but we don't want to tie ourselves to the performance of the company, you don't get the big swings in the successes or the failures, right? You want to get paid no matter what. CEO, the company going over the business, company losing money, listen, F you, pay me. CEO get fired, F you, pay me. I don't care. Make sure that my check is there at the end of the month. And so you got to take this with a grain of salt. A lot of people just talking, but they're not adding context to their conversation in order to be able to substantiate what they're saying. All right?
If you are considered middle class, can you chime in and let me know what you have in your savings account? Because
it doesn't matter whether or not he's okay. I'm giving you a correlation as to how CEO compensation, and not just CEO compensation, and compensation is different depending on whether or not you're actually getting paid based off of the equity and foregoing the greater base pay in order to prevent yourself from having to pay the same amount of taxes as the regular worker. Come on, man. Grow up. Grow up. Grow up. I need y'all to put your big boy pants on and stop worrying and pocket watching from the perspective of saying, well, he going to be okay. It's not about that. It's empowering you with information so you can make a better decision and to get into certain rooms so that you'll then be armed and be able to have more success and replicate some of the same things that you see happening on their level. It's why I'm telling you to open up a business. It's why I'm telling you to negotiate differently. It's why I'm telling you to get in certain industries. Stop focusing on the dumb thing and start open up your mind. Come on, man. Are we that crazy? Jesus Christ. Focus. Focus.
I swear, every paycheck I am putting money into my savings, but needing to transfer it back within a few days. My registration's due. My husband's registration's due. He needed 2 new tires, even though he had a warranty. That was $300. My oldest needs braces. He needs a palate expander. That's $120 a month. Not to mention, groceries are $200 more a week. Forget about feeding your family like great ingredients, because who has $500 a week to spend on perfect ingredients to feed your family? My husband makes enough money to where we should live comfortably. I mean, is it just the economy? What's going on? Is that why I don't have savings? I quit my job because we couldn't afford daycare. I was paying the daycare more than I was making. So at some point, something has to give. What is going on? How do I save money? Are you guys saving money? What's going on?
So I just picked up a passenger who is going through it right now. And when I say going through it, I mean she is scrambling to try and find where the money is going to come from. Now, I just picked her up at this roadhouse down in the Bellevue, Avalon area of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's on the west side, across the river from Coriopolis, close to Emsworth, Glenfield, Swickley. If you're familiar, you know. If you don't, just know it's on the west side of Pittsburgh. Now, I picked her up at this roadhouse, and when I pulled into the lot, I was like, damn, this place is fucking dead. There was one truck in the lot and another car on the other side of the lot, which I can only presume is another employee or the owner or just somebody that's working there, somebody that has to do with the business, not a customer. And I pull in and I wait for a minute or two, and then I hear a knock on the back window, and I look and I see, oh yeah, that's my passenger. I let her in. I say, hey, how's it going? She's like, oh man, today was fucking awful. And I was like, today was a bad day? And she was like, yeah, it is fucking dead in there. And I was like, well, no shit. There's nobody in the fucking lot. But then she went on to say how it's been dead here for quite some time. And you may think, oh, this isn't a big deal. It's just one pub. It's just one roadhouse. It's just one local tavern in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But I drive these people all the time. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Every single day of the fucking week, I drive people that work in the service industry. Particularly here in Pittsburgh, people that work in the local taverns, people that work in the local bars, the dives. These are my customers. This is my base of clientele. I drive them all the time. And from over 6,000 rides, I can tell you that the trend is going down. The business is not there. It's going downhill quickly. And a lot of these dives, a lot of these taverns, they're simply not going to make it. They're not going to last. And they are going to go out of business. And these buildings, these properties, they are going to be up for sale during this next downturn in the economy, which
sounds like a buying opportunity for me, because we voted for somebody that told y'all that the economy was booming, and it's actually not, and it's suffering. And a lot of people don't understand that most business owners work at their establishments. Most business owners work at their establishments. So when you say, and I know a lot of these people, the thing is always, yeah, man, don't never open up a business for nobody else. Always do it on your own, because I don't want to be building somebody else's businesses. Well, guess what? There's another side of that coin. There's another side of that equation, and you want to know what it is? You want to know what it is? is that nobody cares when you go out of business. Nobody cares when you go out of business. When you go out of business, or when business flops, or when the economy is messed up, or whoever it is that you voted for, they don't have your best interest at heart, and they don't actually work out for you and any of that other stuff, guess what? It's all on you. It's all on you. You're going to be the last one standing before you close the doors. And then somebody like me and all the rest of our bag chasers, we going to go ahead and we going to buy the building, and we going to take advantage of the fact that you wanted to roll with somebody in federal government that has never worked in the private sector and don't have a clue on what it is that you're supposed to do from an economic perspective. And that also trickled down into your federal governors, or into your governors, and into your mayors, your city council people, and they're going to run your city into the ground, and we're going to come in and buy it everything up at a cheap.